Okay, welcome. Thank you. Welcome to our Tuesday meeting. I don't see the gentleman that was doing invocation today, so we'll just have flag salute if you want to rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, entertain a motion on the minutes.
Mr. Chair, after review of the minutes, I move to approve them.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Any corrections, comments, anything on the minutes? Seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda. I'm gonna have to ask that, I'd like to move item 2, the memorandum of understanding, to a motion item. I guess I'm just not done with that yet. If you guys are good with that.
Sure.
That works for me.
So we'll move item 2. I'll go through the rest of the consent agenda. Call for bids. Our call for bids for 12,680 tons of aggregate. It's we're coming upon chip seal season, so this will be a bid for our product for chip seal. Under agreements, contracts, bid awards, number 2 has been moved. 3 is a life insurance trust fund subscriber agreement for Teamsters. We provide a life insurance policy for all of our employees, and this one is through the Teamsters. I think we looked at it yesterday. It's like $4,000. It's not a big expense. We do it for all of our employees. Personal service agreement with Everly Vivian to manage workers' comp claims from October 24th, 2024 through the end of September of 2025. The total amount is $35,021. We've used this group since 2018. They've worked well for us in helping us mitigate some of those claims. So it's suggested we stay with them. 5, memorandum agreement with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife for use of the Cowlitz County Public Shooting Range. We've talked before, the sheriff's office has multiple memorandums with law enforcement around the area, and this is just another one with Fish and Wildlife that they'd have access to come out and use the range. Resolutions, resolution for County Road Project number 818 on East Canyon View Drive. It's a slide repair project. Resolution is the first step in getting the process rolling to get the problem fixed. So that's what the resolution is about. Resolution rescinding resolution 24-059 and revising the appointments and designations for the Washington County's risk pool. Basically, it's been updated with Commissioner Rader and Commissioner Farrell. And then a letter from Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to Pacific Power regarding the Merwin geologic reconnaissance report. And we had vouchers in the amount of $4,097,599.07. And that is consent agenda. If anybody has any questions, comments on it.
Could someone just explain for us item number 4 a little bit, what managing worker compensation claims means? Who is the client? Who gets the service? And what is the performance?
Yeah. Shelley, do you mind? You probably have a better handle on that. Shelley Purse is our risk manager. She probably
Okay,
has a
very
better
good.
handle.
Good morning, Shelley Pierce, Risk Management. Everly Vivian is a third party that we partner with who helps us manage all of the claims for Cowlitz County employees. So if someone gets hurt on the job or trips and falls, slips and falls, things like that, they help us manage conversations, communications with doctors, employees, and employer. So we've managed those claims and we've actually shrunk the time frame on managing those claims, which saves Cowlitz County a lot of money.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Pleasure.
Any other questions on consent?
I would move for approval of the revised consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Last chance. Okay, we'll call for vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's tackle finance. Why don't we tackle that one first?
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. We submit to the commissioners an agenda, a motion item. We have a change order with Prestige Northwest Construction Services. They are assisting us with remediation and restoration of the annex building due to water damage. And during their mitigation, they discovered asbestos and lead. And so there's a change order to cover those items and some additional equipment and materials as well. And so the total of the change order is $23,746.90. The original contract was $129,604.48. The new contract will be $153,351.38.
Just for the public, if you remember when we had that roof redone and they had some problems, there were some issues there and it caused leakage and we have plans to move public defense over there. So we took the action here instead of working through the process to have whoever is at fault with the damage, get it repaired. We said, let's get it done because we need OPD in there and then we will continue to work on who's going to end up paying and
Right.
the portion of
Seek
payment. So-
reimbursement for the
Right.
claim.
So that's kind of where we're at today. Some of this should be come back through reimbursement, probably a good chunk, but we're not at that point yet.
Right.
The commissioners, the BOCC made the decision, let's move ahead, get that thing up and running for OPD while we continue to work seeking reimbursement. So that's kind of where we're at today. Any questions, comments on that?
I move approval of motion item number 9.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the change order to Prestige Northwest Construction Services. Last chance for questions on that. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we'll tackle item 4. We had some discussion on this yesterday and I just haven't been able to get comfortable with it. So I'll take the hit on bringing in the motion.
Item 2.
Yeah, item 2. We have it's a memorandum of understanding with Cowlitz County and Cowlitz County Correction Officers Guild. And it involves the payment of bonuses for not only new hires, but those that we currently employ. And we've had some struggles of hiring people over there. Just to give you a little history. The last contract, I think we were negotiated in 2023, maybe, It started in 24 and included a pretty healthy bump, in fact, a 10% bump. Was it a 3-year contract?
That's
So it-
correct.
So it runs through 24, 25, and 26.
Yes.
And the purpose behind that was we were having trouble attracting employees for the jail. So we did this bump, and it sounds like the extra money, if we're going this deal, the extra money and pay is not attracting people. Although I've seen a report, we had 24 applicants this month or this year in 24.
I'm sure that's correct. We may have had more than that. I'm sorry, Marin Fox, Corrections Director.
Yeah, which is I'm just got this morning, but it looks like apps for 2024, we had 24, and 23, we had 5, 22, we had 8, and 21, we had 10. So
Are you saying applications for employment?
applications.
Those numbers would be much higher than that. But when we get an application, we immediately send a background packet. It's not atypical for us to send out 30 background packets and get back 5. So the number of applicants, it needs to be higher, but the quality of applicants also needs to be higher
Okay.
and actual interest in the position.
So
Okay.
Marin, on the chart that you sent me, that's what he's referring to. What are those 24 applicants? What it says applications, what does that represent?
The
The bar
email
chart,
I sent
the
you
bar
this
graph,
morning.
yeah,
Okay, that's per month.
per month.
Yes, yeah. That's what that means. Yeah.
And that number's qualified people that are ready to go to work with the job, or what is that?
Just
represent?
anyone who submitted an application through our website. So all applications. And so some of those obviously are people that are actually interested in employment, but some of them are checking a box for unemployment, I would assume. So when we send out a background packet and we don't get it back, I would assume that person's not actually interested in the position.
So you could get you could get a job application from a kid just graduated from high school, and that would count in that number. And it could be
Yes.
somebody who's an existing police officer with 20 years experience trying to move into Cowlitz County.
Yes.
Okay.
And historically, we used to bring people in and interview first and decide if we're going to give them a background packet. Because of how the job market has been for us, we transitioned to sending background packets to everybody and let's see who's actually interested. So that indicator is people are applying that aren't actually interested in doing this work.
Okay. So it has generated interest. The matter of quality is still open to discussion.
That's correct.
So we did a big bump in the salary grades to try and attract more people. Now we're still not attracting people, so we want a signing bonus. And I look at this agreement, and there's a signing bonus for new people, $6,000. But the majority of it is really it's $8,000 for people that already work with us, payable over 2 years. It feels like an agreement that's really, it's biased towards who we already have versus trying to find other people out there. When I just look at it, and I just, as I said yesterday, I think we're opening up a can of worms that this will be here, and then we'll see it elsewhere. It'll come to us. I'm just positive of it. And I don't think, and we have this, I get it, that it's set on a 3-year deal, but it runs through 2026, and that happens to be when the new contract with them will be up. And I'm willing to bet that this will stay as part of their agreement, because it's part of the agreement now. And so I'm having real trouble. My gut tells me this isn't going to fix anything. We're just going to spend money. And I'm having trouble with that. What's the, and I don't know if you have this, I don't see Jessica, but what's the salary for a deputy coming in or a person coming in?
A new corrections officer is paid $32.48 an hour right now.
$32.48?
That's correct.
I wonder what the 4 and the 4, what that works out into a percentage. I don't have a calculator on me, but
We went into this discussion with the Officers Guild. We've been using temps with their agreement for a number of years, which is a Band-Aid and doesn't solve the problem. They indicated they do not want us to use temps after the end of this year. And so that's when we came to the table to discuss options with them. And in looking at the industry now, signing bonuses are becoming pretty common, and how this staffing shortage affects our officers is really, it's really negative impact. They have to work a lot of forced overtime, and a forced overtime shift can look like 18 hours with a 6-hour turnaround. And that really, I mean, that obviously has a negative impact on their health, their families, and they've really hung in there. So it's a two-prong. It's trying to support the officers that are doing this difficult work that clearly nobody wants to do, and trying to front end, get more people in the door to solve the problem.
and I get all that, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be outvoted here, but I'm just saying, I don't think throwing money at it is gonna fix it.
Yeah.
I think there's people out there that just don't want to do this work, and I don't know how you correct that, and just throwing money at it is not gonna do it. And we had a conversation yesterday about safety,
Mhm.
and so that always brings up to me, and if we get to the point where we have to not accept all charges, what charges would we not accept? I mean, I can't imagine that if somebody comes in on a homicide charge that we're gonna not accept that.
Correct.
So what kind of charges would you not accept?
What would be the typical next step for booking restriction would be to, obviously we take all felonies. There are 2 misdemeanors we are required to take. That's DUI and domestic violence. So the logical step in booking restrictions would be to stick to mandatory bookings, which would be all felonies in those 2 misdemeanors, and to not accept any additional misdemeanors.
Like driving on suspended license or
Correct.
something like that?
Unlawful camping.
Yeah,
Criminal trespass,
Okay.
that's when people are at Winco that have shoplifted before and are not supposed to be there. Shoplifting is
Do
a
you know
charge.
roughly how many inmates we have right now?
I'd probably 180, 185. I
Right
didn't
in
look at
that
the number
area?
this morning. Yeah.
And what's the makeup? Is most of them, would you say most of them fit in the mandatory or
Well, the people that stay in jail were probably more mandatory, but the bookings are not. So over the weekend, you can look at it, probably at least half of those would be non-mandatory.
and how long do they stay in your jail?
Well, that's up to the
It's up to
judge.
the judge,
Yeah.
but how fast do they usually turn them out?
It depends on the charge, but it's not atypical for a misdemeanor to get out the next day, depending on the misdemeanor.
Yeah, so they get an overnight.
Yeah. And they
stay.
get bail set or they get PR'd.
How many people do we hold that fulfill their sentence at the county?
All misdemeanors and any felony that serves under a year.
Okay, so it's the year is the breaking point? Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay.
But they can be,
People like the gentleman over there that pleaded guilty to murder and stuff, they're going someplace else, right?
right, but they will be with us until they're sentenced. So felonies, people in jail for felonies can be in jail for more than a year awaiting trial or closure of the case.
So would it be fair to make the assumption that if it's somebody that's considered a dangerous type individual, that they're not gonna walk in one day and walk out the next day?
I think that's subjective, but I mean, it's the judge's decision. And really, I think there are a lot of factors in whether the judge is going to let them out the next day. If they've had a lot of failure to appears on their record, they'll keep them in jail. If they're mentally ill, often they're going to stay in jail because they're not helpful in court. They're not able to, they'll refuse to go to court or behave in a way in court that means they stay in jail.
And one last one, the portion of the number of people that make up what you would consider mental
Mhm.
type issues where they can't be housed with others, how many do you have there that we have to deal with?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say a percentage. I would say there's probably 30 to 40 at any given time.
That have to be housed separately?
housed separately or some sort of special housing or detoxing in some sort of state that means they can't be with other people.
Kind of goes to your point, Larry. Okay. Go ahead, Ron, if you have questions.
Other commissioners first, if they.
I just wanted to, Rick, it's just under 6% of the starting salary, that bonus.
So
So
over,
the retention bonus is 6%, but the retention bonus is not a reflection of a new hire. Because that's what you quoted, right, was a new hire. So I'm not sure what percentage the retention bonus is of somebody who's at a level 3, 4, or 5 as opposed to a new hire. But from a new
Yeah.
hire, it's just under 6%
Right.
a year.
The retention ends. The MOU was written to look at the signing at the 3-year mark. I did talk to the guild president yesterday and looking at making that 1 year, and they're certainly willing to do that. We could put it at a 1-year mark to look and see, has this worked? Is the signing making a difference?
I got to tell you, I was somewhat surprised to see it on an agenda, and it never came through exec session on contract negotiations or anything. And so it felt a little bit blindsided to me to not have a chance to discuss this through. Because I know this isn't we'll usually give you something to go with, but it wasn't. This was changed by the guild before it became this, right? Because they talked yesterday about, well, the guild wanted this, was it the 2,000 after probationary period? There was
We met in executive session about this, and we talked about the numbers, the way it was paid out, whether it's paid on the front end, that changed, the totals didn't change.
Yeah.
We had looked at it, this proposal was less expensive than the original way we had looked at it, which had it based on seniority. So a less senior officer was going to get a less amount and a high senior officer was going to get more. They proposed to have it be the same for all officers that have passed probation.
Yeah.
And that actually reduced the overall cost.
I guess I want to back up a little bit here. I trust that the board in 23 that negotiated the 3-year agreement made a good decision at the time. But I also would think that based on what I understand, that 10% bump in that 3-year contract in 23, looking at the economy, we had high inflation rates and stuff. I don't know how much of that was an adjustment in their contract to take in consideration for inflation and how much of it was true incentive to try and make sure we keep them here. So I wasn't part of that discussion. But again, I got to have faith in the previous board that you guys all made a really good decision on what was in front of you at the time. The other side of this is right now, to have this be a one-time thing that is in front of us as a retention and then a signing bonus, at least we have control of it. It's not something we're putting into a permanent, this is going to be a forever thing. We can always say no the next time, and conditions may change going forward in the economy versus, where we're at today. I don't know.
Let's explore that a little bit. This is a guild, right?
Yes. That's
And
correct.
if we don't come to agreement with the guild, what's the process? It goes to a judge, goes to a mediator.
We are in discussion on this. This is before you because the guild has indicated they no longer will allow us to use temps at the end of this year. That is what allowed us
That's not my
to,
question. My question is, if we don't come to agreement with the guild, what's the process?
we will no longer be able to use temps at the end of this year. And we will have
Who makes the decision on what's going to be final
on what? What do you mean?
on a contract? Say we're in negotiations on a labor contract with the guild.
Right.
The guild, they can't walk out, right?
Correct.
In exchange for that, if they don't come to agreement with this board, they go through a mediator that makes the decision.
Binding interest arbitration.
Yeah, binding
Right.
interest arbitration. So if at the end of 3 years, we decide they don't want to do this, they decide they want to keep it, and it goes to binding arbitration, that person, whoever does that, can make a decision that it's part of the package now, right?
Well, this is a memorandum of understanding. It's not in the contract. So we've signed an MOU with them that has allowed us to use temps. So that the use of temps and how they can be used is in their collective bargaining agreement, that 3-year agreement we're talking about. They've allowed the county to work outside of that agreement because of this staffing shortage, and the guild has indicated they're no longer interested in doing that. So that's why we're discussing this. So it wouldn't be part of the collective bargaining agreement. It's a separate
And I'm
memorandum
here
of
telling
understanding.
you, they will try to make it part of the collective bargaining agreement. That's my,
It's possible.
that's what I'm saying. So I'm just,
Can we?
I'm not, I just, let's have everything on the table. What can happen here? And I don't see, it looks murky to me, and that's where I'm having my hesitation.
Is there an opportunity to include language in the MOU that states that at the end of the 3-year time period, that it's not going to be part of the collective bargaining contract?
Well, it's written that says that it will no longer continue after 3 years unless agreed by both parties.
By both parties?
By both parties. And we could reduce that to 1 year and the commissioners could say at this time next year, we're no longer interested. That's how an MOU works, and we'd be done discussing that. We'd be done with the signing bonuses.
So I have to say, I agree with the chairman's assertion that there could be a precedence that's set moving forward. But the questions that I have for you are, as far as the mental health classification, does that currently affect the occupancy and the number of officers that we have to have in the jail? In other words, if we change that classification or I'm not sure if it's done by statute or how that's classified, but if we change the mental health statute to the point to where the classification of mental health is X, but if we change it to Y, it's going to change the occupancy, which would change the number of officers required for duty. Does that make sense? The question I'm asking.
Yes. No, not necessarily. It would change the kind of work they're doing. It would probably change the amount of physical assaults that occur, but it wouldn't necessarily change our minimum staffing levels.
When you say physical assault, why? What do you mean?
It's not uncommon for officers to be attacked by mentally ill people. Just this month, we had an officer attacked by a mentally ill person. This month, we had an inmate sentenced to 55 months in prison for attacking a female officer, grabbing her bottom inappropriately. So, I mean, we're dealing with mentally ill people. So it increases the stress, increases the violence, increases what the officers are dealing with.
What causes that change, Marin? Why would the assaults go up if we did change it?
I'm saying the assaults would go down if we didn't have as many mentally ill people in jail.
I know, but what's the variable that would cause that?
A change in law, that there's a place for mentally ill people to go that isn't jail. Oftentimes people come to jail because it's a nuisance crime. They're out causing a problem in the community. There's nowhere else for them to go. So they come to us.
So is it because the cell situation? Is it the block situation? I guess I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. What is it within the jail that if we change that classification that would cause that to increase? Is it more one-on-one with those people because they're no longer mentally ill? Are we holding them in a different cell? What's the protocol that causes that to happen?
Sure. So we have our mental health unit. I think all 3 of you have toured the facility. You've walked through there. That is used for, I mean, those are all single cells. They're not built to be single cells, but we have to use them as single cells because of the type of people that are coming into jail. We have another housing unit that used to be general population. We also use that for the same purpose. So the makeup of people in jail has changed pretty significantly. Our minimum staffing is based on running the facility. So it doesn't really fluctuate with, if we have 25 more people or 25 less people, the minimum staffing is what we have to do to keep the lights on.
So somebody who would currently be classified as mentally challenged, mentally ill, would be housed in a single cell by themselves.
Yes.
And that's what the difference would be. They would be put in the general population otherwise.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The other question I have is with regards to overtime. you had $640,000 in overtime last year.
That's correct, with 8 positions vacant.
Okay. And you budgeted for how much? 4?
I believe in that range, yes.
So there's a $200,000 differential there that we're talking about.
Yes, and that's typically offset by the direct labor. So, we have 8 positions open. Obviously, we're not paying that amount each month.
Mhm.
So the overtime is balanced by that.
If you were, have you checked to see, just if you filled 5 of those positions, what that's going to do to your overtime? Have you looked at that? Or just what,
Sure.
do you have an idea as to what it's going to reduce the overtime by?
In previous years, when we had 2 positions open, our overtime is in the 400 to 450,000 range or less. There have been years it's in the 300 range. So if we get down to 2 positions vacant, which is pretty typical for us in better years, our overtime would never reach that. So history would show that if we're able to fill positions, if we are successful with doing this, the overtime is going to come down enough that it will certainly offset the 2 years we pay in retention and the ongoing cost if we choose to do that for signing bonuses. And the retention is also, I think, a nod to what our staff have gone through and how much they've had to sacrifice because of these positions being open. And, it's not their fault these positions are open, but it really heavily impacts them and their families. So,
Well, everything we do impacts a lot of families in this county.
Yeah.
We've tried to look at, because the mental health thing, when they have to designate, they're set up in, are the 8 little things are set to hold?
odds, yes.
Yeah, pods. And so when you can only have one in there, it creates a problem, obviously. And we all understand there's more labor intensive issues with people acting that way. And we've tried to see if we could use empty space in the juvenile facility, but you can't mix adults. I mean, there's just all kinds of rules. So it's an issue we know of. We heard yesterday, we know it's an issue in Cowlitz County. Behavioral Health tells us on their crisis line, they take over 4,000 calls a month. So we know there's a need, and we've had people here speak about it, that they know there's a need. And I'm not arguing that there isn't a need. My only thing is I don't believe this is going to correct what we want corrected. And I think we're setting a precedent that's just going to end up costing a lot of people a lot of money over time. And if I get proved wrong, I'll be the first to raise my hand and say I am. I have no issues with that, but the way I'm looking at it right now, yeah, I see it. Go
Right,
ahead.
so I'd like to go back to the root here. It appears for us, the constituents of this county paying these bills, it's a staffing issue. A staffing issue related to hiring, recruiting, resignations, and overtime, correct?
That's correct.
So if you put that all in place, first of all, what are the criteria that you need for your recruiting and staffing, and what help? Is that you that's doing it, or do you have Cowlitz County personnel, people helping you recruit and staff and come up? Secondly, overtime is an issue. A lot of us have ran in the mills where we have to keep things going 24 hours a day. Overtime comes when a replacement does not come in and you have to hold over, or you have to call someone in. So there are a number of things that regard that. So, I mean, I would normally look at a little chart of what are the opportunities of solving the problem. Throwing out $6,000 is only one of the opportunities for solving the problem and what its ongoing implications would be. So why do you have either resignations or that you're not able to recruit? What's the qualifications that you need for your staff? Is it different for the jail than for the mental support part or whatever? So apparently when you have a dollar issue and a hiring issue, you also have the capability of what are the requirements for that staffing. I'm presuming and hoping you've went through all of that and presented a good matrix to the county commissioners on what the alternatives are in solving a problem. And when you start laying out $6,000 and you start talking about union and guild, you don't lay on the table what they want. You also put out some little carrots on what you want to help solve your problem. So I'm confused listening to all of this, that this dilemma has actually been looked at carefully and looked at what the alternatives are and what the long-term implications would be. So I would like you to explain that, but not, probably you would start with your commissioners and really explain it to them.
Yeah, this is a topic we've been discussing for quite a few years. The staffing issue is not brand new. We've tried quite a number of things, and this is a request I never thought I'd be making to the board, but we're at a crisis point that I feel this is a request I need to support, and I need to ask for support on so we can continue to operate a facility and support the officers that are there. But we've certainly marched down all those paths and looked at all of that. We've looked at all kinds of recruiting changes. We're still continuing to do that. These signing bonuses are not uncommon. Clark County's offering 10,000 and 25,000. It's, I got an email yesterday from another jail that's looking at adding signing bonuses. It's not just a Cowlitz County problem. Recruiting in this industry is a problem. And our minimum staffing or our minimum requirements are based on state law.
Good morning. Hi, Marin. Look forward to seeing you later
Yeah.
today. We have been studying the public safety thing, and we've put together a paper, and I'll be talking with you this afternoon about that. But the jail is absolutely essential and critical to public safety in Cowlitz County. Marin, how many what I would call line officers do you have, excluding the mental people taking care of the mental health people?
We're budgeted for 42 corrections officers.
And how many do you actually have?
We are down 6 at the moment.
So 38.
38, but two are at the academy, so they're not working right now, and they won't be ready to work for probably 20 weeks.
Okay, what is the average age of the 36?
Oh, I have no idea. Average age 40, maybe.
40, okay. And what is the average number of hours that those people are actually having to work per week, including call-ins, overtime, and everything else?
I don't have that number. I know that they are working a lot. They work 12-hour shifts. So they're working 3 or 4 days a week, 12 hours a day. So if they're going to be forced, it's typically going to be on the days they work. So an 18-hour day with a turnaround that's pretty quick.
I remember when I was about that age, and I also am absolutely amazed at the few people that can respond and put in those kind of overtime hours and what it does to their general health, what it does to their families, and their complete lifestyle. My thinking is that, and I've talked to a number of people that work at the jail, and I understand that they've been working under an awful lot of stress for an awful lot of years. Can I say that this is not a new problem?
This is not a new problem, but it's an escalated problem. We've never had this. I've never seen this number of positions open, and we've never had this much trouble getting qualified applicants.
Okay, I do know that several of the police departments have had signing bonuses lately.
Yeah.
In fact, they compete with each other to see who can attract the officers. So it's kind of a bidding war, so to speak. So obviously, this is not a job that very many people want. That means that's supply and demand, and that means we have to be willing to pay more for whatever it takes to get the quality of people we want to fill those slots. And I think that we have an obligation from the citizens of Cowlitz County to make sure that the jail is functional and we're getting people off the streets that need to be off the streets. And a lot of times we start talking and we look at the cost in terms of just what's on the county or city budgets, but we never factor in the cost that the public has to pay for criminals running loose and doing bad things to their property and their lifestyles and everything else. And anybody who's been to the Highlands would have a very good idea of what I'm talking about. Stuff is stolen from them all the time. They can't let their kids out to play because the wrong kind of people are on the streets. That's just an ongoing cost that Cowles County citizens are paying, and it's not recorded anywhere. So we can argue over, what'd you say, $36 an hour, whatever it is, versus $40. Even though that may be a big deal on the county budget, that's nothing compared to what the cost that the public is bearing if the wrong people are let out on, that shouldn't be out. So obviously, this is not something easy to be solved. I think if this has been going on for a while, Ron has kind of hit on one of the key parts of it. What's going on at the jail that, in addition to the money, that we can't recruit new people and new people don't want to come in and apply for those jobs. So I think this is a much bigger problem than just what we're talking about right here. So we as a community have to be working on the whole solution. Now, you guys know that I'm working on the mental health part of it, and I'll be talking with Marin later today about, the mental health portion of what's going on in the jail. But we have to figure this out, and obviously she needs help. And, it means all of us have got to pitch in and figure out how to help her with this. So that's my thinking on it.
How much money do you think you're willing to pay?
I have no idea, Rick.
Yeah. Has spending on jails, how long have jails been around? Has spending gone down on them? Has crime improved? Has spending in schools gone down? Has schools improved? What I'm telling you is money's not always the answer.
Well, that's
And you
that.
gotta
And
be very careful on that.
well,
We've
I agree
we've
with you.
already heard that anybody that's a felony or mandated dangerous type people are gonna be in there. The others are in there for a night and off they go. So I don't know that the current system is gonna correct the problems you're wanting corrected, other than it's gonna take money out of your wallet. And that's what I sit here trying to decide and protect. I do that on everything that comes through here. So, I'll go back and I've said it before and people get ornery at this. Be careful what you ask your government to do. They'll never stop and they'll never stop taking your funds to do it. And that's my caution here, is that it's hard for me to believe that just throwing money at this is going to fix it. We threw money at it 2 years ago and we haven't seen a fix, and I just don't think it's going to happen this time. And I get the safety stuff, but I'm hearing that the people that are bad are going to be in there. I'm hearing the ones that are the misdemeanors that might be on your property and doing that, they're going to go there for a night and then walk out and do it again.
Yep.
So that's not a jail issue. That's a judicial issue that needs to be addressed. It's not her facility issue. And
It's fairly important to law enforcement, though, to be able to book people on those nuisance crimes. When they go to a park and there are a bunch of people, open container and not supposed to be there, law enforcement feels pretty strongly, local law enforcement, about being able to bring them to jail to at least remove them from the situation, even if that means they get out the next day. There's at least something they can do. We had to implement some booking restrictions during COVID, and I think everyone remembers how not popular that was. So, it certainly is something the community and law enforcement feel pretty strongly about as well.
Yeah, part of my looking into this mental health thing would be talking to all the police chiefs, and what do they do when they come across somebody that obviously needs to be locked up? They got to have a place to bring them, and if they just bring them there and they're let loose the next day, we haven't solved the problem. We just got a rat race. So I agree with you 100%, Rick, that we got to be careful on the money. But we also have to factor in the cost of what's happening to all the people in the community if the wrong people are running loose. So I'm looking at it from a 30,000-foot level. It's more than just whatever Marin thinks she wants to put out in the way of a signing bonus. I have no idea if it worked for the police, but every time I go to a city council meeting, they just say they've hired another police officer. So I don't know if if the bonus is working or what's going on there, but this is a wide-ranging problem. We need to figure out how to support the jail and make sure that we've got a place to put people that need to be there.
Well, I don't view that, we're not trying to solve a judicial issue here, at least not in my mind. What we're trying to solve is manpower, overtime, safety issue at the jail for the people who work there. So we're not going to solve a judicial issue in this setting. It's not going to happen. And I struggle with, I feel like we're in a position where we have to make a decision based on the situation that we have today and not try and make a decision based on fears of what might be tomorrow. So I could what if tomorrow's until hell freezes over and then some. And you can't operate in what might be tomorrow. You have to work with what you have today. So yes, I have concerns about what might be tomorrow, and I share those concerns with the chairman. I shudder to think what could be tomorrow. Thankfully, at least from my perspective, my belief is we've had a hell of a change in the direction of this country from the top down, and I'm looking forward to it improving. I want to see law and order working for the citizens of everybody in this country, not just Cowlitz County, but especially Cowlitz County. I'd like to see it get solved first if I had my way about it. But anyway, go ahead.
Thanks. I just had a couple questions for you. You said that there were you had 6 openings currently.
Currently, yes.
And how many applications did you say you had? I thought at one point you said you had like 24 applications.
24 a month would be the average right now.
Okay, and about 5 of those return that second packet
Correct.
of background. So that's 5 a month that you're getting that return. That what's stopping from some of those from being hired?
Well, it's not uncommon to get a packet back that the person used cocaine last year. So
Oh,
that's
got it.
going to be an automatic no. Or, just obviously a very messy employment history. We look at every single one of them and determine if we're going to invest in moving forward. The next step in that is a background investigation. We have staff that do that. Then they have to do a polygraph and a psychological evaluation, a physical evaluation, and a physical agility test. Those are all state requirements.
Got it. So that feels like a lot of 5 a month. That's 60 a year
Mhm.
to choose from to fill 6 positions. It seems like 1 in 10 somewhere in there would make it through that. That just seems like an inordinate amount of applications for not hiring. I guess that's my question, sort
Yeah.
of like, and maybe that's the way the numbers are, but that just seems like a lot of applications.
Quality of applicant the quality of applications we're getting has come down. So
Has come down.
with the increase we did last year, we did see the number of applications come up, but the viable applications has not.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And then, when you aren't keeping people in the jail, those people that are not required, is that because of staffing or is that because of space? Like what's making you not keep some of the people in that you would keep in?
We are accepting all bookings and keeping them all as long as the courts decide. So we accept all bookings. Local law enforcement can book on any crime.
Okay.
Then they're held until a judge decides one way or the other. So
But
what's
you-
not keeping them in jail is judicial decisions.
Weren't you saying that you were going to stop keeping, like you only had to keep the felonies and these
Oh.
2 misdemeanors or something, and you were looking at doing that? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding. I'm not familiar with a lot of this.
I think that's what I was saying as far as if we're not able to do this, if we're not able to get more staff in the door, the next step would be to look at restricting our bookings
Yeah.
in order to reduce our staffing levels.
And that was because of staffing, not because of
Yes,
space?
yes.
Okay, okay, I see. And then a question about the retention bonus.
Mhm.
Would everybody be getting that? Is that the idea? Or is it only employees that have been there for 5 years are getting the bonus for being there for 5 years? How would that be structured?
It's any officer that is off probation. So when they're hired, they're on probation for 1 year before they're off probation and fully trained. So anybody who's fully trained, and that is the way the Corrections Officers Guild want it structured. We had initially talked about tiering it based on seniority, but they wanted it structured that any fully trained officer would get the
Okay,
two.
that just, I guess that's one area that I sort of understand the sign-on bonus, but that seems like a big bonus for only having worked for 1 year. I've worked in a lot of professional positions and never gotten a retention bonus. So that just seems like an inordinate amount for somebody who only has 1 year experience, which really isn't that much experience in this. So I guess maybe that's one area that I would look at maybe changing a little bit to save some of the money down the line. So anyway, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Yep.
I just have a little question. Sure. We talk about repeat vendors, correct? And repeat offenders.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Excuse me. My version of being detained would be something that should be unpleasant. And beyond that, I think they need also counseling. Is that offered?
Yes, we have counseling.
Okay, and is it an ongoing, or once they get out, do they have to come back? Is it an ongoing
Once they're
thing?
released from custody, no.
Okay, I, my husband used to work at the juvenile detention, and
Mhm.
what he noticed, there were, like was mentioned by Ron before, there was certain jobs that required certain skills, not necessarily physical
Mhm.
skills. And I'm wondering if your call for employment addresses the fact that maybe you could have an older population doing some of the jobs that you might address those people, and you might be able to hire those for people that don't necessarily need to be more physical. Do you have that, or they all have to be
Yeah.
like 20 years old and in the
No,
frame?
they have to pass certain requirements. It's, there's no age requirement. And I agree with you that communication's more important than physical ability in our profession for sure. But there's a state requirement for certification.
There is,
So all those
okay.
steps that I described are the state requirements, and they have to go through all of that and be certified by the state.
Okay, I just thought maybe that might widen
Yeah.
your scope.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get into context, the criticality of the situation. From what I just heard, you have not had to decline any admissions because of staffing as of yet. You've accommodated that with overtime pay to people, so you've had your facility operating at full capability so far
And with the use of temps, yes,
with the use of overtime.
and temps.
Right.
Mhm.
So therefore, the issue that being discussed and for the commissioners and you to look at some options says that it's more getting into one, what is immediate and then something immediate, but then longer term. And I thoroughly agree with the discussion. I can't understand paying $6,000 bonus to someone that's only 1 or 2 years. They already signed on at a rate. They got a 10% bonus. I can't understand that. You would retain your older people, the younger people already signed in, knowing what they got into, et cetera, and are working toward that. It doesn't seem to fit. The other is that using part-time of law officials, et cetera, a lot of agencies are able to use, as someone mentioned, retired people or other people that have qualifications to do certain jobs or things within a facility to help the staffing with some conditions. So I get back to it again. There are a number of options here, and when you're dealing with the guild to lay out what are the opportunities of both plus and minus in not just handing money out. So thank you.
Sure. And I understand on the 1 year mark that that it's being treated the same as a person who has 20 years of experience. But I could also tell you that a person who has 1 year and they're fully certified here in Cowlitz County could go work in Clark County and get a $25,000 signing bonus with them and get paid about $4 more an hour. So we're also, I mean, unfortunately, competing with other counties in the same industry.
Brad Thurman told us a week ago, he's fully staffed.
Yep.
So some way or another, he's been able to fill his need as just a model.
Sure, law enforcement is not having the same vacancy rate that corrections is having, and that's true across the state, not just in Cowlitz County.
And the fact that they might go to Clark County is a what if. We don't know that for sure. We don't deal in what ifs. Is what I heard. Go ahead.
Well, we argue here a lot about what government should and shouldn't do, and security is one of the things that government's supposed to do. And the fact that our sheriff is well-staffed reflects well on us on that part. Problem that we're in the hole that we are here with the jail isn't because of the jail or the processes that are taking place there. It's because we're short on money because we blow money on so many other dumb things. And, I don't know about the exact details of all this because it seems hard to pin it down. But on the one hand, this is what government's supposed to do. On the other hand, how are we going about it? I mean, we were sold this building back in the 70s, I think it was, the courthouse, supposed to have it all there. Now we're stuck with this big building that doesn't work. The other two of the agencies have left. There's not room for the other one. So, when the jail came up, I remember distinctly voting against that twice. Resoundingly voted against having the jail. And I got to say at the time, this is what I was in my mind because I remember it clearly. Didn't feel like management of the jail was something that could take place here. Felt like the other building was totally mismanaged and didn't feel like building another building. We didn't have the money really to do it. They took it from the landfill. What we were supposed to have money to buy a new landfill. So, you're in this hole now. And I mean, I don't know what the exact solution is, but on the one hand, security is supposed to be one of the things government puts money into.
Okay. Good discussion.
I would, first of all, thank you, guys, for all your comments. It's been very insightful. And Marin, thank you for coming and sharing with us and bringing this to us. I understand the situation that you're in is not, it's not fun, and you probably don't look forward to coming to this meeting with this on the agenda. But I do want to bring up a couple of points. As far as the, not regulations, but the qualifications for becoming a corrections officer, have they gotten more stringent within the past?
Slightly more stringent by the state,
Okay.
but the basic background poly psych has always been in place.
Okay.
Since I was hired 26 years ago.
And I've talked with the sheriff with regards to his staffing, and what a lot of the law enforcement are doing is they're coming up with those sign-on bonuses because they're laterally recruiting. They're not recruiting new staff.
Right.
They're getting them from other departments that are already trained, and that's why they have those sign-on bonuses, because you're getting somebody who's already trained, already been through the background checks, and that's what's attracting those people, is that lateral movement. It's not new staff. It's not, somebody who's brand new going through that process. So that is one thing that we, when we're looking at the overall picture, that we need to take into consideration, is that those sign-on bonuses and the staffing issues that they're not having has to do with, and the sheriff will tell you, they're laterally recruiting people to come to the sheriff's department, which good on them, good for them. But I will tell you that the highway patrol, I've spoken with a couple of those guys, and they're having the same exact problem with new recruits.
Mhm.
They're not attracting new recruits, so they're trying to lateral people into it, and going to the highway patrol from a sheriff's department or a police, that they're not attracting them. They're going from the highway patrol to local police or to sheriff's department. So That's an issue that a lot of departments are having. And with regards to the quality of the candidates, I can speak to that personally because my wife's business is hiring and she took in 23 applications and not a single one of them would she hire. Not one out of 23 applications. So I understand that there's an issue with regards to the quality of the applicants that are coming in. You know, to Lorna's point, that is definitely a lot of applications. And I think it's very reflective of the work pool that we have currently to draw from. And if you have all these other expectations, we don't have a lie detector test. We don't have a mental, we don't have, it's just, can you read, type, and are you honest? And we're having an issue with that. So I can understand that there's definitely a problem that you're having with regards to the quality of the applications that you're getting. Let me look at what I have written down here. So what I see happening is because of the situation with the work pool is we're in a bidding war, as I think it was Ron that stated, with other agencies for that small percentage of people that would qualify and that want to do this job. Okay. I also agree with the fact that it's not just money that's going to fix this problem. If you look at why people stay at a job, money actually isn't one of the main factors. One of the main factors that people stay at a job is management, their manager, their direct report. And one of the main reasons people leave is the same reason. It's management, it's their direct report. And I'm not saying that isn't directed at you. What I'm saying is that money is not the only factor. In your situation, I would have to say that the work environment is probably one of the biggest factors that people leave.
Yep.
As I walked through that place and saw what you guys have to deal with, that's a heavy load. And if you have to do it sometimes 18 hours a day, I totally sympathize with that. I really do. I don't know that that's an environment that I would ever, want to be in. But I can tell you that as far as the bonus for somebody who's been there a year or 3 years or 10 years, when you're looking at the competition for those laterals, you got to do what you got to do to keep somebody who's made it through that process. And I understand that. It doesn't matter to me if they've been there for 13 months or 24. If they're able to be hired and they're doing this job, I don't want them to go anywhere else. So we need to do what we can do to be proactive, to retain the employees that we're getting, because we're not getting many. You know, I don't know that, I really don't know that this is going to solve the hiring problem. Hopefully it helps, but I do agree that there are some things that we probably want to look at moving forward to see what we can do to make it more attractive. Who knows what that is? I mean, we may have to get creative and think outside the box on what we can do and look at what other departments are doing around the state and around the country that they're having success with, to be able to do that. Ultimately, it's a difficult situation that it's not just our corrections department that's feeling it. A lot of other, places are feeling this hiring thing, and a lot of it has to do with numbers too. We have a baby boomer generation that is retiring, and we have a much smaller generation in the workforce that's trying to support everything that's going on with that, the size of generation with the baby boomers. So there's a lot of facets involved, and I think that we're really taking a hard look at it because there's a lot of things that could implicate us in the future, and a lot of things that can implicate us now. And so with the decision that's before us, I'm grateful for the conversation and the opportunity to do what we can to make sure that we're providing an environment that our county employees are able to provide the service that they're supposed to provide to the citizens. That for me is the biggest thing. Are we providing the service to the citizens that they deserve?
And one question come across the chat. Seems to me that the biggest issue is the upcoming liability to use temps. Can Ms. Fox address that further, please? Is it a
Can you say that again?
liability, or they just don't want us to use, the guild doesn't want us to use temps?
They've agreed to let us use temps for the past few years outside of the contract language. So they have the right to say, you may not use temps anymore, and when you want to go back to contract language. So they've indicated they would like us to stop using temps at the end of this year, because it is a Band-Aid that has allowed us to have these positions open. I believe they feel like this is an urgent issue. It has become more urgent, and I believe that's what they're trying to convey by
I know
that.
they don't want us to use temps, but the temps caused us to pay liability issues.
I don't know I don't know that I understand that question.
Have they not been able to perform the work and we've had to pay out for things they haven't done right?
No, the temps we're using work in the control room. So we're not having temps working out on the floor with inmates. They're up in the control room, opening doors, monitoring the cameras, that type of thing.
Okay, hopefully that answers.
So were the,
question.
the ability to use temps, is that a memorandum of understanding also
Yes,
that was done outside the contract?
it was done outside the contract, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. The guild agreed to that, which really has saved us in a lot of ways, that we've been able to have that number of positions open and keep the lights on, as I say, is because of the use of temps.
How many
Okay.
temps are in service right now?
4 or 5, they rotate into different shifts. They're not all working full-time.
So, and you use them in the control room?
Yeah.
They're not out in the population?
That's correct. They're in the control room.
And I was curious about if you're doing 12-hour shifts and then you have to do overtime, obviously 18 hours is a maximum.
Yeah.
Is that limited by the contract?
Yes,
How many days in a row can you work somebody 18 hours a day?
there's no contractual limit to that, but it would be, the most that would typically happen would be, 3 days, and that would be terrible, but they're not typically going to be forced to work 18 on one of their days off.
I've
There's
worked
a whole bunch of
18-hour days.
contractual things, so.
When I was much younger, I've worked 18-hour
Yeah.
days. And that takes a lot out of a person, especially when you're physically active for most of that period of time.
Yeah.
And when you're an old guy,
Yeah, right now I need my naps.
yeah. I guess I should say old guy or old girl. I was going to ask about temps and you partially answered the question. So you're using the temps in the control room and I'm assuming then that frees up your full-time employees to work the floor, so to speak.
Yes.
Is working in the control room considered a better job than working the floor?
Well, it depends on the officer. Some officers hate it up there. It's a break from that day-to-day contact with the inmates to some extent. We currently have it's what we use for light duty. So if an officer is injured, they cannot work on the floor, then they'll work in the control room until they're back to full capabilities. So we currently have one full-time officer working in the control room and recovering as well.
I would assume for the normal person, other than the few that want to work the floor, that control room would be a better job. And if your temporary employees get the better jobs, that introduces a lot of conflict amongst your permanent employees.
Well, they've all been nice about it, but you are correct that it takes away a position that is a little bit of a break.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
How often do the temps work overtime?
Not very often. It's offered to them after it's been offered to everybody else. And it would only be if the control room was open.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
So, just comes to mind, couldn't you hire the temps as part-time? Or is there a way to make it so the control room person, I mean, could that be a separate job from like a regular general, somebody that has to go down there and be on the floor?
That
Could
would,
that be like a separate position?
it can be, and it's considered a civilian position in some departments. Our contract, we'd have to negotiate with the union, and that would be part of contract negotiations, would be to change. We'd have to have changed language in our contract in order to do that.
You know, the job I worked that was so long hours was truck driving. I always wondered how come they did, because a lot of guys would work, but it's like, man, it's so many hours. You just don't take the job on. Whereas if they had part-time job, you know, I'd probably still be doing it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't want to sign on to working my whole life away. But I don't know, maybe there's a part-time kind of control room corrections person's job out there somewhere, maybe? I don't know. We
That would
have
also-
temps, you
Yeah.
know?
That contract
What if they
language,
were offered something there, they could just be part-time, you know?
the contract language also speaks to part-time and defines that. So we're not able to do that
Okay.
per their officers, the officer's contract.
But these are all things that we could discuss at the next negotiation.
Yes.
And I think that's a very good point, is that we need to look at what the terms to these contracts are moving forward, so to help us mitigate some of the problems that we're having
Yes.
moving forward as part of the decision.
Okay, been good conversation. Up to you guys what you want to do with it.
I guess I'm gonna say I want to move approval of motion item number 2.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the memorandum of understanding with Cowles County Corrections. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
So don't really have anything. We don't have anything special this Wednesday. Next Wednesday, the 19th, we have district court billing rates. Port of Woodland is going to be here to talk about their TIF, but I don't think they're going to be here now. So I'll open up to you guys, whatever you have. It's your open floor. I haven't got an answer. I haven't got an answer on that.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
You read his mind.
Yeah, it's sitting down in there and I know. What I know, Tim, is you can get that data from the sheriff. Before it was the paper would reach out and take that data and print it. And I don't know if anybody picked that up. That's what I'm trying to find out. Okay? Anything else?
Do you have any update on the Port of Woodland to let us know about before we go to the meeting on the 20th?
I'm gonna be down on the 20th for that meeting. I I had a conversation with them last Tuesday. It was fairly spirited, as you can imagine. I don't know where they're gonna go with that. You're not gonna change my mind. I think that process is wrong. I don't think you just to get to unilaterally say we can take this
Right.
money. I mean, I can't go around my neighborhood and say, I'm gonna build an addition, so you guys need to pay me for it. It just doesn't pass the smell muster for me. I think there's better ways to them to do it, and I'm a little surprised they didn't pursue first. We had, and this was before my time, the Port of Longview put in, we've talked before about these rural development funds we get, which is a tax rebate from the state on taxes already paid. It's not a new tax, it's taxes already paid. And because we're a rural county, we get some of that back that can be used by the cities, by the ports it's really designed for infrastructure, the underground stuff, for getting ready for development. And before I ever sit in this chair, you can bond those over several years. And we did that with the Port of Longview at one point in time. They had a large project that you couldn't fund in 1 year where they committed to, and I don't even remember how many years it was committed to. And so I'm disappointed that the Port of Woodland wouldn't come and maybe try an avenue like that versus just stepping up and taking all these acres and saying, we're gonna do you for 25 years. I really don't think this legislation was meant for what they're trying to do. I think the spirit of it was the old Red Lion down in Vancouver sit on an environmentally challenged site. Well, they put it into a TIF. You're talking like a 3 to 5 acre site for a 3 to 5 year period to mitigate those issues and build something new. I don't think there's anybody sitting here who would have an issue if you had that kind of focused project and you needed some help with it. But when you're just making a 25-year money grab, coffers out of not just the county, but other places, I think there has to be a better way to do it. And so if, you know, I don't even know if they're gonna like seeing me come down there, but if they allow me to speak, that would be my thing to them is, if you bring us a more focused project or go through this other process that's already available to you, we'd be much more open to it. But I'm not, I don't think the BOCC is going to sit here and just say, yeah, you can take funds from the taxpayers for 25 years and we have to figure out a way to make it up. What's going to stop other entities from doing the same?
So on the briefings, meetings on the 25th and 27th, how much power? Are we gonna-
Those are not public comment meetings. From the way it was explained to me, those are just informational meetings. They're gonna lay out their grand plan.
Okay,
That's what I understand from those two meetings.
so what do we do as citizens to have the power we need to keep this from going through?
You have, the power of voice, just like you exercise here. And they hold meetings twice a month. We do it weekly and you have the ability to come and talk.
Right,
The last I heard, and don't, you know, you might want to confirm this, but their voting meeting for this is, when I heard the gentleman talk in Woodland, I believe he said April 17th
right.
is their voting meeting.
So does that mean that the people in Olympia are doing the voting?
It means
or-
that the
locally?
port commissioners can vote to do this, and then it goes up to the treasurer, and it's pretty much, they just kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, ratify it or approve what they voted on, or,
Rubber stamp. it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's just the port commissioners who are gonna vote on it.
yeah.
Okay, so on the meeting on the 20th, will we be able to do public comments then?
It's an open public meeting, so you have the ability to do public comment. Yeah, I'm just making an assumption here, but most places have a time limit. They'll probably give you 3 minutes or whatever, you know, like you used to in other places.
Not those guys.
Not those guys? Okay.
Don't even have a voting.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
Lane, why don't you give us your pitch on what do you think of those guys? I mean, when they were talking about all their other stuff, I have an impression, I'd give it that Lane was there.
Well, it sounded to me with the other stuff they were talking about people that rent from them. There's people that are behind on their monthly rent. And yeah, more than one. I mean, it sounded to me that if these people don't pay their rent eventually, sounds to me they're in a little world of hurt financially.
So they're trying to.
That's what it
use
sounds
other
like to
entities
me.
Make that up?
What's that?
It sounds like they're trying to use other entities to make up.
They come up with an idea.
Oh, yeah, they've got an agenda, obviously,
Okay.
but it sounded to me like they're in a little bit of financial hurt as far as companies that are renting from the
Yeah.
port.
You know, hindsight's always a great tool because it's always right. But, you know, if you go back in the day and you can go back years, and I don't know why they had this vision, but Port of Kalama had this vision and they sold it to the public of what they wanted to do. And the public agreed to pay extra on their taxes for a period of time for them to do it. And it turned out they made the right call. I mean, the people and the port, you can see the benefits down there.
But
there
like
now.
you said, when I talked to you before, this 25-year deal, commissioners are going to come and go during that
Yeah.
time. Rules and regulations are going to change.
And Commissioner Rader made a great point the last time we talked about this is you're competing with private enterprise with an unfair advantage. You shouldn't have that. A private enterprise should have the same advantages as any government entity to come in and want to develop that land. We can't, if a private developer came in there and they came to the county and said, we want to do this, but we need a little help from you, there, no way. We can't do it. That's called gifting of public funds. And I don't know how this is not the same. I guess it's not. It's not gifting because it's just taking. So, so it's okay that way. But we could not offer this kind of help to a private enterprise to bring them in and develop parts of our county. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you should have some leeway if you have a good business coming in and you see a lot of potential there that you should have some leeway to work with them. But in the state of Washington, you do not. It's gifting of public funds and you cannot do it. So
So if the three commissioners pass this, we're done.
it's pretty much a
There's
rubber stamp. Yeah.
nothing the
Then we just
public
figure
can
out
do.
how we're going to deal with it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You see how soon somebody else does it.
Yeah, that has me nervous. Probably has all of us nervous.
Yeah.
So on this subject of the Port of Woodland, I'm going to put in a call for help for the public awareness is that we need, and I'll speak me, and we need some understanding of what the situation really is. And through presumably the eyes of you, the commissioners, and its impact and future impact on this county and the precedent that it sets for other, quote, public entities, ports or whatever in the county and in the state. So I've just barely heard it, but it's not truly representation of our tax funds. It's through, again, appointed commissioners or port commissioners in taking opportunity of a special situation. And that's not what our county and our society is built on. So I'm going to ask for a white paper or some information or get the Watchdog or get the Daily News in and do a real good comment on what really is going on and what the immediate and long-term impacts are. And I heard 5,000 acres. So ultimately, it's kind of, I relate back to a BlackRock campaign to take more ground from farmers and other people and basically ultimately put them out of farming business. So I'm just rambling because we need help in understanding the situation.
Well, I can tell you that this board has been actively involved in advocating for more information with regards to what's going on. And we do have meetings scheduled with Woodland Port Commissioners to discuss this, and they're open to the conversation. They have not said this is set in stone and this is what we're doing. So we're actively working towards open lines of communication to help fill in a lot of the gaps that the proposal has in it. And we're working towards, a resolution that's good for everybody. And it's been said before, the chairman has said, we're not against development. We're not against bringing in, business or anything like that. It's the method whereby it's being done is where the questions lie. So we're working on doing what we can with that problem.
It's,
Help us gather behind you and support you in the knowledge with some information.
it's my belief that it will be information in the next watchdog that comes out. I've been told that she's working on that.
Very good.
Okay, well, I can answer some of that, or maybe put you on the right path. There was a staff guy at this meeting, and he's the one that seems to be the one that's the detail guy. He's drawn it up, and he was very open to, he's like, after the meeting, if you want to see what it's all about, get with me. I couldn't stay, so I was leaving it to Elaine to talk to that guy, and she's got some big pile of paper there. But he's very open to explaining it, and this is a staff guy there, and I didn't get his name. Sorry about that. On the other hand, too, if we're going to plan to go there in numbers, because I'm planning to show up for that, and it's a very small place. I noticed the occupancy was 50. The parking spots are like 5. It's a small building and like park around back, you know, you got, the road is not, there's nowhere to walk around the building to get to the front. If you parked in the back, that's the mistake I made when I went there. So I lucked out, got the last spot up front, but there's not much for parking and there's not much room. And it's not like this at all. They don't have a podium or a microphone. I think they did, but I don't remember exactly that part of it, but it's just, they're at a table. It's pretty basic there. So if you're planning on going and a number of people are gonna show up, parking, seating, it'll be different than what we're used to.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can't get the information from that one staff guy. He was really open to laying it all out and explaining it.
Is that the Woodland guy?
Yeah.
Port guy?
Port guy, Port of Woodland guy, the staff guy there, yeah. I just couldn't stay, so I had another appointment, but, so I can get.
Was he was a Port of Woodland employee, he wasn't a consultant,
He's a
You-
staff.
staffer? Okay.
Because I was sitting in the back and I watched that guy, and, you know, how you do, and, anyway, he's the one that had all the stuff about it. And he was very open to explaining it, and the commissioners, the heavyset guy she's talking about, he even said, feel free to call the port and ask about it, and they will get right with you. He said, try not to, you know, take them at a time from something else, but as long as they're just in the office, you can go there and they'll show you, you just call ahead. They'll tell you all about it. They were open about that.
Okay. Anything else?
Hey, these microphones are great too, I think.
Nobody had trouble hearing today? Yeah, good.
No, that works
Well,
much better, much better.
Thanks for the discussion today. That was good. Thanks for participating and being here. We will adjourn. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.